And a bit of a developing story for you as we have it coming through is that the opposition National Democratic Congress has finally tabled that petition before the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service, asking the IGP to effect the immediate arrest of Minister for Agriculture Brian Acheampong. We can now cross over to my colleague Samuel Mbura, who's at the IGP's office, particularly the police headquarters, getting more from lawyer Abraham Amaliba, who's addressing the press.
For Agric, Brian Acheampong, for the unsavory comments that he made during the Easter break. You are aware that he's on viral video to have said that the MPP, will not hand over power to the NDC, come what may. And as lawyers, we are of the view that this comment or his comments on that day border on one, national security, and two, an affront to the Constitution. And as lawyers, we think that the police administration must be interested in this matter, because as stakeholders in this democratic dispensation, we will not sit by for just one person to pass comments that will bring unrest in this country. So that's why we are here today, and we've submitted the petition to the CID boss. We had a copy for the IGP, and we thought we could have met him.
Before you go to the IGP, what did the CID boss tell you?
The CID boss indicated to us his appreciation of what we have done, and she was of the view that she would take the necessary steps, having received the petition. But once we were also going to serve the IGP, she will wait till we do that.
Did they confirm to you whether they saw that viral video of Brian Acheampong?
The CID boss did not say much. What he indicated to us was that he's happy we have brought the petition and they will work on it. As to whether she has seen or the police has seen it, that didn't come up. But in my submission, I said that we have attached a video in a pen drive, and that if she hasn't seen it, this is an opportunity for her to now see it.
What's your level of confidence in the investigation of all your desires?
We are very confident because the police administration, not long ago, gave a clear indication that they were not going to tolerate such comments, particularly when the youth organizer of Swami, the NDC youth organizer, was arrested and put before court. And as we speak, he's in court. And so we saw that as a mark of good leadership on the part of the police administration. And so what we are doing is not derogating from that. What we are doing is furthering what the police has already started doing. And so we are confident that having started this, the police administration by themselves, clamping down on such speech, they would deal with this matter as well.
What was the motive behind going to petition the IGP after petitioning the CID boss?
No, the petition is to the CID boss, but a copy to the IGP. And don't forget that the IGP is the head of the police administration. And whatever information or whatever documents you serve on junior officers, he must also have a copy, and that's why we did what we did.
Is there any timeline from your outfit concerning the petitioning that the CID or the Ghana Police Service has to act on this issue? And if, so to speak, the service fails to act on your plea, what is the next line of action for the NDC?
There's always the reasonable time period. We are not about to tell the police how to do their work. The police are professionals, but there's always a reasonable time period. We'll give them a certain reasonable time. Failure to act on it, we will now take the next step. And the next step, as you are aware, we have copied this to various institutions and very important personalities in this country. We will take up the matter with them. We will let everybody know in this country that the police administration is beginning to be choosy and the police administration is beginning to be biased. But I don't want us to get there.
Tell us your attempt to reach the IGP on your petition. What was the challenge?
Well, as you may be aware, when we delivered our petition to the CID boss. The next step was to go to the IGP. And as we approached his office, we actually saw him standing at the car park with some officers. We also saw his car, GP1. And nonetheless, we couldn't go to him directly. We had to go through the reception. And so when we got to the reception, we were told to come to the outer reception, which we did. Now, at the outer reception, we were told that the IGP wasn't there. But you are aware, you as media men also saw him. And so we couldn't do anything otherwise but to just leave the document with the reception. And we hope that it will get to the IGP.
What's your interpretation of their behavior, if you like?
I am disappointed in the police administration for refusing to let us see the IGP. But I want to give the IGP the benefit of the doubt. It's possible whilst we were on our way coming to the reception, he might have drove out. But I think that it's in bad taste. It's not professional for citizens who are not armed and citizens who have come to meet the IGP for us to be turned down in such a way.
Let me find out from you. Did you book any appointment that should be coming to present your petition to him?
No, we're not supposed to know that because this is an impromptu matter. It's a matter that we needed attention, and we didn't need to book an appointment for them to give us 3 or 4 days before we come here. This is a matter which needs to be dealt immediately, and we have every right to come to the police administration at any time seeking to see the police administration or the IGP.
Okay, so finally from me, as your outfit, as the legal team or the NDC going to keenly follow how this issue unfolds?
That is so, and you can see the number of lawyers here. We have 5 here. It's a clear indication of the seriousness we attach to it. We are now going back to re-strategize and see the next step to take. But there are lawyers here who I will detail to make follow-ups on this matter.
2 questions from me. Do you think the IGP evaded receiving your petition?
Yes, in some way, because the officers who he was chatting with approached me and clearly indicated that, yes, we should go to the reception from where they will bring us to his office. But for us to get to the reception and for the reception to call his office, and we are being told that he's not on his seat, it's a clear indication of an IGP who was clearly evading our document.
Last question. So, you present the copies to other state agencies. What do you expect from them?
And if you could list out these state agencies that you copied.
Indeed, we feel that this is a matter of national interest. This is not a matter only for the NDC. When this matter came up, you heard civil society organizations speak to it and condemn the comments. And so we've copied the Speaker of Parliament, the Peace Council, the House of Chiefs, that was the National House of Chiefs, the Catholic Bishop Conference, the Christian Council, the Chief Imam, and of course the media houses.
All right, so Blessed, that is the head of the legal affairs of the NDC, Mr. Abraham Amalba, addressing the media. We first, went to the office of the Director General of the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service. The NDC lawyers, numbering 5 of them, were given the audience to meet the Director General of CID. After their engagements, I made an attempt to get her response, but she directed us to the public relations unit of the Ghana Police Service. It was then that we descended, and then they wanted to petition the IGP on to present their petition to the IGP, which was not, which was not received, but they directed them to leave it at the reception, and then they will later present it to the IGP himself. But I can
And Sami, if you can hear me, it appears that we're having some challenges hearing you there. Of course, my colleague Samuel Mbura, who's at the Police headquarters, bringing us live pictures of what's happening now. The NDC's legal team officially placing before the IGP an appeal for the arrest of Minister for Agriculture Brian Achampong. The NDC says his comments have the potential to destabilize this nation. Of course, a reason for which they are tabling that petition. They are equally raising concerns about the posture of the IGP, the fact that the IGP himself was not willing to engage the NDC on their demands, a reason for which the letter has been received by other officers, in spite of the fact that the IGP himself was present at the office when they visited today. These are some of the concerns the NDC is raising as of now. But for those of you who may not be aware of the situation, Brian Achampong over the weekend in the eastern region made some comments purportedly that the NPP was not willing to hand over political power, reason for which the NDC has some issues. Let's cross over again. Let's see if this time round connection with my colleague Samuel Mbura will be much more better. Sami, we lost you earlier.
I indicated earlier that we were at the Director General of the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service. She received the entourage of the NDC lawyers. There were about 5 of them, which Mr. Amalba led the team to present their petition to her. So we're not privy as to what transpired at the meeting there. But after the meeting with the Director General of the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service, I made that attempt to find out from her response to this petition. But that effort wasn't fruitful because we're directed to the Public Relations Unit of the Ghana Police Service for further information, and information is not forthcoming. So we descended to the IGP's office, but audience wasn't given to the team. They have been told to present the petition or leave the petition at the reception so that they would further send it to the IGP's office. And after that, Mr. Amalba came to address the media. So we've not had a response from the police officially on this statement, but the NDC lawyers say they are not quite happy about the approach by the Ghana Police Administration here at the headquarters. They were expecting that at least the IGP being at the premises of the headquarters should have made that attempt to talk to them, listen to them, and also receive their petition in person. And since that wasn't done, they are not happy about the situation. So you can take it over from me in the studio here.
I mean, how about but Sami, if you can hear me, how about the content? Well, it appears we're having some challenges there. But of course, the NDC has been raising a number of issues which is contained in the statement or the petition that's been placed before the IGP. And of course, as part of the concerns, Samuel Mbura will just bring us details of what's contained in that document. We'll, of course, reconnect with him shortly to get some more from Samuel Mbura, my colleague, but we'll do that later on when we have some updates. But it's confirmed now that the opposition, National Democratic Congress, has put that petition before the Inspector General of Police. Sami, you're back again. I was asking about the content of this petition.
Said that the NPP will never hand over to power to the NDC on any platform, and they will do whatever they can to ensure that their interest is protected. He is reported to have said that they have the men, and if the NDC wants to use a brute approach in the upcoming elections, they will show them that they have the men. So that's basically what they have reproduced in their statement. And then they also made reference to the recent happenings in the Ashanti region, where one of their executives in the Swami constituency reportedly made comments that was deemed distasteful. He was arrested by the police and currently standing a trial. They say, oh, since there is an antecedent to that effect, they do expect that Mr. Brian Achampong should also go through the same treatment that their executive in the Ashanti region went through. And they expect that their petition will be executed within the stipulated time. Though they have not given exact time, they are expecting that they would work on it in a dispatch way, as they did in the case of the Swami instance. So in the petition, they have actually copied the Peace Council and other relevant authorities to also weigh in their voices so far as this issue is concerned.
Okay, grateful. We'll leave that here for now. Security checks will not allow for us to continue to be there at the headquarters. So it explains why my colleague Samuel Mbura is in a hurry to leave the frontage of what was supposed to be the CID headquarters, but the NDC has tabled that. You had lawyer Abraham Amaliba speak to the press a couple of minutes ago, which was live on this platform. Time now to take you to Washington in the United States of America, because the spring meetings are underway and Ghana is crucially in need of that $3 billion bailout support from the International Monetary Fund. But it appears from the perspective of the fund itself, it believes that time is running out and that developed nations would have to quickly subscribe to the external debt exchange and restructuring for the Republic of Ghana. It's been part of the issues that came up at the press conference addressed by the IMF boss, Kristalina Georgieva, and the boss of the World Bank as well. They've been addressing the press on a number of issues.
A significant inflation problem. That means central banks have to continue to keep interest rates higher to combat it, and that is on the way of restoring the prospects for robust growth. We have seen that this rapid transition from low interest rates, abundant liquidity, to high interest rates and much less available liquidity has exposed vulnerabilities in the financial sector that made the task of policymakers even harder. So in that context, what we are projecting for this year is, despite the remarkable resilience of consumer spending in the United States, in Europe, despite the uplift from China's reopening, global growth would remain below 3%, as we projected it earlier this year. And what is more concerning, it would remain around 3% for the next 5 years. That does not give us high hope for meeting the aspirations of people, especially poor people around the world, and most importantly, poor people in poor countries. Let me stress 3 issues in that context. The first one is that this picture of growth is divergent. There are emerging markets that are doing better. But for frontier markets, for the poor countries, the future is not so bright. And in terms of income per capita growth, poor countries would remain below income per capita growth in middle-income countries. Dangerous divergence. 2, we have been wrestling with one crisis after another, one shock after another. And that has pushed on the back burden the longer-term agenda of structural reforms that are paramount to uplift productivity. And with productivity remaining low, the prospects for growth are low. And 3, the ropes that tie us together have become weaker over the last years. Fragmentation is deepening, and what it means is that what has generated tremendous impetus for growth and prosperity over the last 3 decades, an integrated economy, is being negatively impacted. We have done research at the IMF that shows that just the costs of trade fragmentation can run as high as 7% of global GDP over the years. So these meetings are an opportunity for us not only to talk about the immediate priorities of restoring price stability and safeguarding financial stability, but also about the longer-term prospects of growth and how prosperity can be an achievable objective for the lower income countries. Which takes me to you. How do you see that?
Exactly right. And as we look at it, the elements of growth into the future, it's important that there be more investment in small businesses, in new businesses, and that means a flow of capital. And a worry that we have for developing countries is the capital inflow. The capital flow right now is out of developing countries. So there's, for many of the developing countries, it looks like they're in a phase of decapitalization rather than recapitalization. That goes with your point that instead of having convergence, meaning people with lower incomes growing faster than people with higher incomes. So convergence toward a higher level, that's not happening right now. It's actually a divergence, and that's gravely concerning. That means inequality, that means fragility for countries. And we see more countries falling into fragility. One of the concerns with with high prices now, high prices are being applied.
Well, so let's explore the data as we have it and what the implications will be. Let's start off with you, my colleague, of course, Isaac Ofieje, data analyst, sharp guy, of course, here to help us with the figures. So, crucial days for Ghana. How much time do we have?
Well, in fact, we've actually missed most of the deadline we set for ourselves. We've missed the March deadline and the previous one that we set. Now we want to reach, we want to be able to reach the April deadline and probably May. Some are saying by mid-May or the first week of May, we may have the IMF, board level approval. But one thing that is good news for us is that if you look at our external debt that we are restructuring, it looked as if it was China versus the big guys. Right. The big guys in the context of Eurobond borrowers who had about 13 billion in terms of debt with us. We have the multilateral guys who are about 8 billion and other creditors. They were all saying that without China at the negotiation table, we are not ready to be part of these whole talks. That is why it looks as if we are majoring in the minor, just like Professor Bokrin put it, because China has now become very important. And China, all the restructuring talks we are actually embarking on is contingent on China's participation. So without China's full participation, other creditors are not willing to play ball. But we just know that China has agreed, to come to the negotiation table and restructure their debt, which is almost $2 billion. This is actually the reason why we are seeing, we are actually seeing that we may have the board level approval even without restructuring the 13 billion euro bond loans that we actually owe. We are now also seeing multilateral guys coming on board, other creditors also saying they are ready. It's all because China is now willing to participate. It looks as if you look at all the debt talks going around in developing countries, for instance, China is more or less like the missing piece, the most significant or important piece. They may be very small, but since most of the talks are contingent on their participation, everybody will want China to be at the negotiation table to fast track the whole, debt talk.
Okay, let's talk about the G20 position and why that is crucial now. How crucial is it, first of all, the intervention by the G20?
It is, because if you look at Chad and if you look at a country like Sri Lanka, they were able to get the IMF board level approval because of the participation of the G20 framework. We had news that Ghana had made, some progress with the G20 common framework, but just the recent African Pulse reports released by the World Bank, and they said Ghana is yet to actually engage the G20 framework. It's very important because you find the Paris Club in there. We owe them about more than $2 billion currently. Their participation will be important. They also have the power to influence some of the commercial creditors, like the Eurobond, which they are actually the biggest creditors in terms of the external debt, 13 billion. So if you have their participation, it's an assurance for you, and the IMF is willing or will be willing to give you the board level approval. Chad, they got it fast because they actually got the approval from the G20, and then also there was Sri Lanka. They all started with Zambia, but because Zambia was struggling with this whole G20 framework and China and the back and forth, it took a long time before Zambia got what they wanted.
Okay, and this was reflected somewhere last week or about a fortnight ago when the foreign minister of France arrived here in Ghana. They held bilateral negotiations with President Akufo-Addo, and a key factor she mentioned was the element about China and how the Chinese willingness to be part of the credit committee will make a difference. Kofi, let's listen to that briefly. For those of you who missed it weeks ago, then we'll come back to talk about the figures.
Economic situation. So, where is all of us? And by Club of Paris, but not only. Also the 22 members of Paris Club, we discuss how we can help, how we can support the government of your country. And in this case, of course, have to make the restoration of debt, external debt.
Apologies for that, but definitely we know what she said, and we can just sum that up for you. The fact that she believes that China is crucial in the question of getting that IMF bailout, a reason for which there will be a need for a quick intervention by China to be part of the credit committee. That's not confirmed now, is it? Not confirmed at all. So we still have to wait. So that's where there's a need for us to break out how much we really owe and how much in debt we are. Let's break down the figures, for instance.
In terms of dollars, we owe about close to 54 billion US dollars. And the most important aspect now is the external component, because we've been able to restructure the domestic debts, and now we are hoping to, restructure the external. This is the reason why it's so important, and why we need to take steps to make sure that we achieve success in terms of this whole debt talks. Because if you look at Ghana as a country, in a year, interest payments alone on external debt that we have is about 1.7 billion US dollars. If you add compensations, charges, and other things, we need about 2.5 billion dollars to do debt servicing, including principal payments, charges, and interest. And with that, and you look at the money we are getting from the IMF, it's about 3 billion US dollars. So if you need close to 2.5 billion US dollars to service your external debt, and IMF is giving you 3 billion.
And you have that on the screens right now, what Kofi is talking about.
So what we're talking about,
the 1.7 billion.
The fact that it looks as if
China on one side.
Debt restructuring it's like China versus the other big guys.
Right, so take a look at it. 13 billion in Eurobonds. 8 billion actually for multilateral. We have the Paris Club countries accounting for some 1.9 billion. That's slightly higher than what China
is actually.
Yes, but if you compare that individually in terms of country specific, then we'll say China is our biggest creditor.
China is the only single country that has about $2 billion of debt with Ghana.
Right.
And even if you factor in some of the project loans we've taken from China, like the Sino Hydro deal and other deals that we've signed with China to get other projects done, the debt is more than $1.7 billion. It's because we've excluded some of these loans or agreements with China. That's why we still have $1.7 billion. So debt servicing to China is projected to go up. And that is why IMF is still insistent that we get China on the negotiation table, because if the IMF, program kickstarts, we still will restructure, we still will service debt, but probably we will reduce because of the restructuring that we may have done. They don't want to give us the 3 billion, and we use that 3 billion to do debt servicing, because as a country we need close to $2.5 billion to do external debt servicing alone. So if you are not able to restructure your debt to give yourself that kind of fiscal space to accommodate that $3 billion bailout package from the IMF, the program will just be like a drop in the ocean. Mind you, we are not just looking for the money.
Yeah.
We need assurance also from the IMF to also go back to the Eurobond market. And doing that, we need to make sure that our economy is breathing well again, is in good health to actually go back to the Eurobond.
And let's clarify this, because we need to be certain that the meeting that's happening now is not happening only because of Ghana, because there are other countries involved
This
in
is
this
an
narrative.
annual event that we have almost every year. There's spring meetings. We discuss so many things. But this year, or right after the pandemic, things that have been on the top of the agenda has been the issue of inflation, debt restructuring, and then also economic growth, because we have most of the economies and their projected growth being truncated. Ghana was expected to grow more than 3%. Now we've truncated less than 3%. So these are some of the issues that are, of concern right after the pandemic. And you heard Kristalina Georgieva saying that if you look at low-income countries, about 60% of them are, at risk of defaults, or they are on their way to default. And if you look at emerging economies, to about 25%. And it's because most of these countries have racked up debt and are not able to pay. The only difference between our current IMF program and what we had in 2015 was that this time around, our debt levels are unsustainable. It means if you do an analysis of the debt we have and our ability to pay, we can't pay going forward. So it's different from what we had in 2015, where the whole thing was very fast for us. We're able to get the package and all that. And getting the IMF money, it doesn't mean that right after we get the executive board approval, we're going to start spending the $3 billion. It will come in stages. They will have to come and assess your economy. And at every point that they do the review or the assessment, they'll give you a certain tranche or quota of the money. So 2015, we qualified for $980 million.
That's the first tranche.
That was the entire program, about $1 billion. We ended up only being able to withdraw just 630 or 780, just because we weren't able to do some of the things we're supposed to do. So at every stage of the disbursements, it is actually conditioned on something that you are supposed to do. But one good thing about an IMF program is that it's more or less like you have a new headmistress or headmaster in town.
New king, new law.
Exactly, and
indeed,
helping you to run your affairs. And the international creditors, they believe in the IMF, and they know that when the IMF is in your boat,
let's see how that will play out for Ghana. Let's check out more on what's happening with the spring meetings. My colleague George Wefe is joining us from Washington. George is with the Joy Business team. George, thanks for joining us. Crucial moments for the country. Spring meetings are underway, but Ghana is on the radar because of our application to the International Monetary Fund for a bailout. How is that playing out in Washington?
Well, it's a question that one would say it's indeed a long route. One would say if it hadn't been these external partners coming in to try and put pressure on these creditors to fast track the process, it would have been a real difficult one for us. You had the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen talking about the fact that he will use this week to put pressure on Ghana's external creditors to fast track the process for us. The IMF MD Kristalina Georgieva also earlier during this week spoke about the fact that she is also putting pressure on the creditors to fast track the process when it comes to Ghana's situation. So that is what is happening. Whilst these actors are putting pressure on those who matter, Ghana is also pushing very hard to ensure that we're able to make some progress at this meeting in getting this program. Now, one critical thing that is going to happen today is the creditors meeting that is supposed to happen. That is the Paris Club. And what we understand is that there will be a partial creditor committee being established from the Paris Club that will begin formal negotiations with Ghana in terms of the way forward for Ghana's debt situation. Now, at this meeting, that will get a better idea whether the Paris Club is going to go ahead and indeed cancel Ghana's debt or restructure Ghana's debt. We'll be looking out for more details on that one. Also, the Global Economic Outlook report has been published, and many will be looking out for what is Ghana's position or what is the IMF projecting for Ghana in terms of a growth rate? Well, for this year or end of year, the IMF is projecting that we will end the year with an economic growth rate of 1.6%. Now, this is lower than the 3.2% the fund projected for last year. Now, if you compare this with government's own 2023 budget, government was looking at a recording something like 2.8%. So that is quite lower if you look at the fund's own projection for us and even government's own 2023 budget. Also, if you look at the World Bank projection that was published in its Africa Pulse report last week, it was projecting that Ghana will grow at 1.8%. So if you watch these global institutions and their projection for Ghana, they don't seem to agree with government when it comes to the economic growth rate for this year. Some would say that, and so what? Why should we care? Well, it appears that then government projection in terms of revenue, just a lot of things, was based on that 2.8%. So if we are not going to achieve that, that could have some implications for revenue. That could also have implications for some commercial banks, some businesses that were looking forward to Ghana expanding this year. And based on that, that could impact on their earnings and profits. And that could come with some interesting development and challenges for us.
But that press conference is scheduled to start any moment from now. Earlier, there was a session about the global economic outlook. How much of a factor has it been for us, the external pressure, and how it's impacted developing nations such as Ghana?
Well, the external pressure more is favoring government or Ghana, if some would say, in terms of US, in terms of the IMF, putting pressure on these creditors that can you fast track the process? And that is why one critical thing is happening. The Paris Club is establishing what they call a partial creditor committee. I know about full creditor committee. I don't know about partial creditor committee. So it appears that this pressure, this subtle pressure behind the scenes engagement is working. And that is why, and that seems to be going in the favor of Ghana. But don't forget about the geopolitics issues as well. Now, we're expecting that China would have been part of the Paris Club in reaching an agreement with government. But it appears they want a separate, more of bilateral engagement with Ghana. And that one also has its own challenges for us as well going forward. So in terms of the subtle pressure, maybe it's working in our favor in terms of us fast-tracking the process to get a board approval in the second quarter of this year.
What are we to expect in the next few minutes?
Well, in the next few minutes, you should expect something come out of the Paris Club, or in the next few hours, we're also expecting something from the G24 countries. They've been having meetings, which includes the finance minister, as in the way forward when it comes to Ghana's debt situation. And we might be getting some details coming of that engagement as well in terms of Ghana's debt situation. Could they be stronger if they go as a bloc in negotiating with these countries than individual countries? And that could also be coming out of some of these engagement that they've been having as in the G24 meeting, which includes governors, the central banks, and finance ministers across the world.
All right, then. Talking about the finance minister himself, what's been his posture? What's been, by extension, the position of the Republic going into negotiations with the G20?
I think that he's more confident, if you could read his demeanor, because he believes that government has done what they are supposed to do, especially when it comes to meeting the preconditions of the IMF. And also, don't forget that before this meeting, Ghana had gone to China. There's been a lot of engagement behind the scenes. And again, when you even engage some of these Paris Club members who have some reps here, you get the sense that in principle, they are for helping Ghana with the financing assurance. The problem is, how would this be done? That is a sticky issue here. So the IMF board is looking for what they call assurance and commitment, and not a final agreement. And that is what might be working in the favor of Ghana.
And earlier, the IMF boss, Kristalina Georgieva, there addressing the press about a myriad of issues. But what's missing, and what we do not find a clear expression on, is on how African countries can, first of all, build resilience and to sustain the growth trajectory. What's the plan of the IMF on that?
I mean, that is why the fund is talking about several countries from including Africa has come to the fund for support. And this fund or this support is not free money. It comes with some conditions. And one critical thing, even in the Ghana situation, is about these structural reforms. And what these structural reforms are supposed to do is to ensure that never again and build resilience. So in one breath, they are appealing to these creditors to help developing countries, but they also pushing hard on the structural reforms. And that is why the 3 billion package that will come would not be free money. It will come with conditions. It will come with structural reforms that will ensure that never again we will get there as Ghana.
Let's talk about the African position that we're going to listen to now. A group of 24, G24. George, I understand you need to go, but just before you do that, the collective position of these African countries, what sense do you get from it?
Well, the collective position, some of them believe that, yes, of course, where we are in, as in the African countries, might be as a result of how things were not managed. Well, some also strongly believe that they got here out of externalities, COVID, and other external challenges. And so it's not fair to blame these African countries of being irresponsible. So if you are in this situation, the Russian-Ukraine issue and all the rest of this is having an impact on our economies, I think the moral duties on these developed economies to also help the African economies to come out of this challenge.
Anyway, George, we'll have to leave it for now. You're going into that address, and we'll be back again to you just to get the latest. George Uafi joining us from Washington, where the spring meetings are underway. We'll be crossing back as the African leaders prepare to decide on what their collective position will be. But let's talk about that long winding stage of the IMF program that we've been trying to look at. And Kofi, here it is, long list. Well, yes. We have number 8, I see a review there. We'll get to that shortly. But the letter of intent, we've crossed that. Exactly. IMF staff assessment, IMF staff report and approval. I think that's where we're at. And then there's the debt restructuring as well. So let's talk about stage 3, where we are now.
Well, stage 3 has to do with, actually it's about stage 6, where stage 5 actually has to do with the external debt restructuring.
Yes.
That has been the hole that we have to make sure we actually clear before we actually get the board approval.
Right.
So without the executive or external debt restructuring, it will be difficult. But just like George said, IMF will need assurance, not, final agreement. So once they have the assurance that most of our external creditors are willing to participate, we may even get the executive board approval before
we are waiting. Yeah.
That is why even Bloomberg is reporting that Ghana is likely to get the executive board approval without a restructuring of the $13 billion.
And that's interesting because George was talking about this whole partial creditor committee.
Exactly.
That's a new dynamic that we're seeing.
It is because we know when these guys are coming in, it's either they are in 100% or not.
Yeah.
But there may be a condition. If you look at what is happening across the African countries, some of the countries were looking for 100% right now. It means they wanted 100% debt cancellation or forgiveness in addition to forgiveness of sins. But they know once you forgive country A of their entire debt,
the rest will make a case for that.
So they are making sure that they tackle each country's situation with a different outlook. The way they will tackle, although Zambia was a template for Ghana, if you look at Zambia's talks, is somewhat different from that of Ghana. And with China, the reason why Ghana is so confident that China will be on board is because we know the Chinese, when it comes to debt restructuring, are different. They will not agree to 100% debt cancellation. The only thing they will agree to is either you extend the maturity period or you agree to pay more on the interest.
But that puts us
in a very difficult situation. But we have a leverage. The leverage is our mineral resources. I feel the reason why we are so confident that we may get an agreement with China is because already we are in a certain debt agreement with China where we get $2 billion from them to work on our roads. They have access to
the Sino-Hydro you're talking about.
Exactly.
But of course, the IMF has raised its own concerns about such a barter agreement and how it may not
I know
be sustainable.
The Chinese will not just say, we've agreed.
Right.
Something must give.
Right.
Exactly. You need to come to the negotiation table with something. What are you coming with? Are you going to give us more quota in terms of your bauxite? Are you going to give us access to your oil or gold or whatever? Mind you, China will not agree to restructure $1.7 billion without a condition.
Okay.
So we may have a leverage, but as of now, we may not know what we are using as the leverage to get the Chinese on board at the negotiation table. But what we know is that we may get an executive board level agreement probably by end of April or early May.
Okay, but I want us to touch on the disbursement quickly. Given the fact that, okay, we're cleared and we're running the program, you're talking about how the funds will be assessed and that it's not a free-for-all day for us as a nation.
So I'm using the 2015 scenario as an example where we qualified for, I think it was $908 million. The first tranche that came in was a little above, I think, $300 million.
And we took another tranche.
We took another tranche. And they all came with conditions. Some of them would have to mean that you need to restructure your civil service to get some of these loans.
And I recall that staff rationalization program and how, of course, civil service will also fight you about that.
And once you miss out on the conditions, hell no, you're not going to get the disbursement.
Right.
That is why in 2015, we qualified for 908, but we ended up only being able to withdraw a little above 600 million.
Right.
About $300 million we couldn't because we weren't able to do some of the things some of the conditions we're supposed to meet before we get. So the 3 billion, it will give us some sort of credibility. But I don't know how long it will take us to get back into the Eurobond market because that has been our savior for the past 8 or 9 years. Where we've borrowed close to, $11 billion from the Eurobond market. We're taking 1 billion, 3 billion, 2 whatever billion from the Eurobond market. And they were giving us these monies because they were anticipating that we'll be able to generate revenue, but the revenues could not crystallize. And we had this serious challenge with our exchange rate scenario, and then inflation came in, so many things. We missed out on the e-levy target where we wanted to get 7 billion. We ended up only getting 300 million. So many factors happened, and we couldn't get the needed revenue we needed for 2022. But this year, there's still a huge hole that we need to fill, which is the budget deficit, which is almost 60 billion Ghana cedis, about $10 billion. We ask ourselves, $10 billion. Where are we going to get the money?
Interesting.
$10 billion?
But it's, interesting days ahead. But even as government attempts to solve the external problem, then there's a fresh issue coming up around our internal situation as well. The domestic debt exchange, it appears that we're not completely done with the process.
Well, it looks as if we are done, but there's still some holes that we need to cover.
Especially about the payment. We understand that there's a statement that's been issued by the individual bondholders as well.
You see, the whole thing actually affecting our external ratings and domestic ratings, currency ratings, is because of the domestic exchange program. There are some of the creditors who decided not to participate in the restructuring exercise, and governments are obliged to make payments. And some of them, we always, all the time, miss the deadline. And if you do some of these things, it will attract downgrades. And it's affecting us on the local front. And the only thing that was available to government to generate more money to pay people that they were owing was the Treasury bill, where they hiked the rate to about 31%. And now we know the Treasury bill rate has been dropped to about 19%. So where is
the confidence?
Exactly,
Definitely.
because we've lost access to the local bonds market. Treasury bill, the rate was being used to attract investors. Now it's 19%. So you keep asking a lot of questions. How is government going to fund this 50 billion? But we know that once the IMF is in charge, we probably will get some.
Okay, then Isaac Ofeje, data analyst at JoyNews. team. You're watching the polls. When we return, of course, we'll bring you that press conference that we're expecting any moment from now. A group of 24 African countries stating their joint position on the ongoing economic crisis that's confronting the continent. We'll pay attention to that and also hear from our finance minister if we do get the opportunity. You're with us here on The Pulse. We'll be back. Welcome back. We're returning from Easter, but surprisingly, or it may be a good news for many of you out there, it's been without major incidents. A reason for which the Accident Victims Support Foundation believes that a number of interventions would have to take place to sustain the gains made during the Easter festivities. Joining us now is Reverend Cyril Crab for a conversation. Reverend, it's good to see you. I was with you on Friday. You were hopeful that there'll be an incident-free Easter and that we'll have a relatively stable condition. It appears your prayers have indeed worked. Glory be to God.
It's a contributing factor, but not entirely. Yes, let me greet your cherished viewers once again for coming on this afternoon. Indeed, for us, it's a jubilation. It's very exciting, just the way you put it, that the mechanism that they put in has really helped, and all of them coming together. I mean, looking at a first quarter already enjoying 20% in 20 years, relatively low in the statistics. Looking at last year, where we have about 15 injured victims, where the hospitals were already complaining. And so we decided that, okay, whilst MTT, the road safety police, are on the road, we would go into the hospitals where these hospitals are referral points, to ask if there have been any casualty reported. And to our amazement and, our surprise, trust you me, even the nurses were happy that, they've never recorded any major incident compared to, some time ago where you will come and then victims are flooded, all over the place where they don't have beds, and the like.
Do you feel that drivers are becoming a bit more responsible?
Well, the presence of not the drivers, but I would also compliment the drivers because they are complying, to rules and regulations put in place. And I also commend the National Road Safety Authority and the police that, they were able to deploy lot of men and deploy the directives. I mean, from January, we've seen Engineer Adontin being on TV, radio, and then the graphics, spelling out what could be done to any indisciplined or reckless or recalcitrant driver, and then moving on to, go to the street, go down to them, and then coming down to the Easter, before the Easter, they issued a directive that they are going to clamp down on broken down vehicles with their towing vehicles. And when they tow and you come for your car, you are going to pay a fine. Then again, also the the board chair of the National Road Safety Authority also came up with PEEP that anybody that takes a picture of any recklessness on our roads to send to the National Road Safety Authority is going to receive 10% of the fine that, So hearing all these and putting all these out there with the presence of the IGP coming to the road, it makes it easier and also sends a warning to all road users, one, and the drivers, two, that this time around there is no mercy for any cripple on the road. And that, I believe, that promoted the compliances on our road and also the check the indiscipline to have this kind of, relatively surprising.
And you say that, first of all, scale up interventions and then sustain the gains made over the period.
Come again?
Where do we start from? More interventions or sustaining what we've done over the years?
I mean, of course, who doesn't look? I said even the nurses, the hospitals. We visited the hospitals from yesterday. We went to Insawam Hospital, Suhum Hospital, and then Amasama hospitals. These are hospitals when usually when the accident occurs, people go. They are carried from the streets, the first point of call, and these nurses at these hospitals are so much excited. They are happy. Meaning, actually, I asked them what do they think that resulted into what they are experiencing now. And they said, number one, on that stretch, the Teacher Mante, Esuboy, Chichire to Suhum, it is the intervention of the dual carriage. And in the festive season is the intervention of the presence of police, and other things that were put in place. And so they are telling me that if we could implement it and sustain it, keep at it, that is fine for them.
Beyond that, what would you want to see?
Beyond that, I want to see that our road, at least I'm calling for a dual carriage. Beyond that, I'm calling for a standardized road. I want to see a standardized road. The UN Decade of Action recommended standardized roads that have all the proper road furnitures, roads that have roads that are without potholes, and roads that are big enough to accommodate the kind of population or motoring population that we have. So going forward,
are you disappointed?
A bit, but now with what I'm hearing, we are for victims. We are for humanity. Let them do all their statistics on the roads, check, let drivers comply with the implementations that they have. Police should check over speeding, seat belt, and all of that. But we are saying that one life lost is one too many, and it is achievable. Road crashes are avoidable. And so we don't want people saying that, telling their families, we are going to come and they come no more, or we are going to come and they end up in the hospitals. No, that's not what we want. We are looking forward as accident victim support that victims will rather end up on the road. It should be a bumper to bumper kind of an accident where I get down, we exchange complimentary cards, we do business, but not when we have to die. Going to Kintampo to check on the 88 people that were buried, to lay a wreath. We went with one family member, and till today, they have not gotten over what happened, and no compensation have been given to them. Look at, talk less of the 15,000 injured people, and we are saying that everyone deserves to live. Everyone deserves a life. God forbid if you get involved. And that is why advocacy is the key. And so we are praying that the National Road Safety Authority will scale up advocacy, will scale up education, because it has been said that education without implementation is entertainment. But now the National Road Safety Authority and the stakeholders are serious. They are on the roads. And I recommend and applaud Engineer David Adontin, who is the acting Director General of the National Road Safety Authority. And the good work that the road safety is doing. To hear that in the hospitals, there are no major crashes and victims. Okay. For me, it's a plus.
Let's then talk about the road networks, which you are very much concerned about, because I recall when the IGP was doing his tour of the bus terminals during, pre-Easter, that was the concern by a number of drivers. They believe the roads are not in a good shape. Of
course, bless. We have been around a while, and we travel these roads a lot. 66 years now, we should have bigger roads. We should have improved road network or road infrastructure. We should improve on it, especially the Cape Coast Road. Can you imagine that these smaller cars, like I said last Friday, competing with these big cars at this level of speed? We cannot continue to blame the drivers, even though they should know what to do, or any accident that happened is blamed on the driver. But we cannot continue to blame the driver. We should also at least improve on our road network, do a bigger road, because the country is aging. The population is growing. We are getting people coming into town, especially in Accra, traveling all over this place. Development is taking place. We are a middle income, development country. So our roads should speak as such. That is the stage we are. And I am praying that just as they are calling for it, we will do it. Then if that is done, we can by and large blame the driver, because whatever they are calling for, like street lights, they are calling for traffic lights, which is not there. At this moment, there are no traffic lights in some major roads, which then again is also, bringing up crashes. We should just be over and done with it. Then we can seriously blame the driver if there is an accident. There is a white lady I engaged who had come from the United States. The first statement she told me, she said, kudos to what you are doing, but at the moment where she sits, the only thing she fears is not a robber, it's not, an armed robber, it's not somebody choking her with a knife or any other thing, but road crash.
Wow.
Yes, and I felt so bad.
But that brings up the perspective about an area we've not been focused on, the commuters themselves and passengers in these vehicles. Their attitude matters a lot, isn't it?
We agree with you. Not only the driver has bad behavior, bad attitudes on the road, just as you said, the commuters also. But I believe that we've got into a stage where we should lead the pace. We should have directives. We should let everyone that is a road player, the pedestrian, the passenger, the driver, should know what to do by our lead. Telling them what they should do at every given time. Like this festive season, we said where people are populated or densely populated, we should have 20 kilometers in those areas. And you go to some funerals and you see some drivers, driving some way, Okada drivers, this recklessness. I'm afraid and I'm praying, let me preempt it, that as we are coming to finish with, is it Ramadan?
Yes.
It's Ramadan, yes. As we are coming to finish, they should be warned in advance, because what Easter has resulted in with regards to road fatalities, it's so amazing. And we should keep it up. Going into Ramadan, they should be at least warned that, look, this is what Easter has recorded during the Easter festive season. And so we don't want Ramadan to come and then change it, so that the motor riding, the recklessness, when it is time to celebrate Ramadan, would go down, or it would not happen at all. And we are talking to also the community that this is what we are expecting, and this is what we expect them also to do on our roads.
And you also, of course, have indicated as a group, as the Accident Victim Support Unit, that it is crucial to have the buy-in from the general public to support in creating awareness and conscientizing drivers and motorists across the country. How would you want the public to be a part of your activities?
Thank you very much. The National Road Safety Authority has a slogan that says that when it comes to road safety, everyone is involved. We all of us as a country, we all need, from the president. And I want to, with this question, I want to pose to our president, who is the first gentleman of the land. I saw him on the in Sawam Road, where we all have to clear the road for him, to pass.
Yeah. I'm sure you give way, by the way.
Yes, I have to. I have to. I mean, I'm not that kind of a citizen, I have to. But what I am saying is that if we have to clear the way for you to pass, you being a road user as well, and as the first gentleman of the land, I think that I'm very much at a position to plead and appeal to the president that he should be the first person to take up advocacy on road safety, to at least, come on board. Let's all say it. Then the entire country will find the essence of advocating for road safety. Either than that, we will just, be going around, because it is very, very important, when the president gets involved and start talking about it, that will send some message out there that everybody indeed must get involved, especially as we live in a political, some kind of a political, standard country where we always listen to politicians. If they get involved, or the president gets involved, or any other who is not just an opinion leader, but people that when they speak, it gets to the people, especially now that they are all looking forward to go into campaigns. They should all take it up. Join the advocacy, because it is everyone's responsibility, because road safety is no respecter of anybody. Every citizen must be a part, because it can happen to us.
Reverend, let's wrap up. But before we do so, we have to touch on this problem that we've been raising here at JoyNews about the dysfunctional traffic lights situation across the national capital. It's becoming much of a concern to you as a group.
Very well, very well of a concern. I am still astonished as to date as we kept on advocating, talking about it, voicing out. I don't think they want us to now do a campaign, come out there and then, campaign on this one. No, there shouldn't be a demonstration on traffic lights. No, we are still appealing. Like you said, I'm very much concerned. There are certain places within Accra and outside Accra that the traffic lights are not working. Traffic is an intervention. It's one of the important road furniture, that we need, which also help in promoting road safety. It brings orderliness on our roads, So if it is not there for 1 year, almost 1.5 years, major roads are not with traffic lights. And once again, I want to sit here against the background of the National Road Safety Authority, because the last time they said it, that the media should join hands to hold them, responsible to come and do it. I will say again that it is very sad as a country like this, we don't have, traffic lights working as at 9. And the police will stop working on the roads by directing, drivers by 5 o'clock. And then other boys take it up. That's why I said it will be very expedient if we train JHS students, train them as custodians of safety. That's why we do the Safe to Safety Child Road Safety campaign. We entrust it in their hands. When they come out of school, we train them to be traffic wardens, so that when the traffic lights are not working, traffic wardens will be on the road, because police will close at 5. At best, they close at 8. When they close at 8, at major intersections, what do? Where we have indisciplined, recalcitrant drivers who, one way or the other, has mental issues. You understand? So we should have trained traffic wardens on this stretch, so that they will direct traffic at least to a certain time. They will be rotating. If the police is not there, they are mandated to only do traffic directing, and it will help a lot. But at the moment that is not there, we cry to the institution responsible, Feeder Road, Urban Road, Ghana Highways Authority. We are begging them. I am begging them for the sake of my victims that at least they should step up and do something about it. Then I would be very happy. Finishing it, I want to still appeal. Yesterday, finishing the rounds, we really had a very hectic time, borrowing a car to run around for what we do for God and country. I think it's about time that we call on the president, we call on stakeholders to see to us and then get us a car. Any car at all can help us to run the very good work that I believe we are doing. And I believe that it is going to help, because the things we carried around, Unilever did a very good job, and we are appealing to other institutions to also come, corporate Ghana, to support us. So when we are visiting these victims, we can give them something to aid them get to us soon. All right then.
Reverend Cyril Crab, we'll see you again, but we'll have to leave it here for now. Thank you.
Thank you
I'm
very
grateful
much,
for your time. Yeah, we'll see you again. Don't forget that it's also the Meteo Awareness Month, and as part of that, the Ghana Meteo Agency is indicating that it is deploying additional staff strength of about 250 individuals. It's believed that this will be part of the measures to give timely and accurate weather forecast. James Kwesi Avaji has been tracking the Awareness Month and comes through with this report.
In the Ghana Meteorological Agency actually came to have a closing remark of their month-long Meteo Awareness Program. This program is part of the World Meteo Day, or the World Meteorological Day observation. The Meteorological Agency of Ghana has decided to prolong this observation to a 1-month program to create awareness, public awareness in weather and climate issues. And so today they have concluded this program here at the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. Now, key amongst the issues that have been highlighted is that the Ghana Meteo has recruited some 250 new staff that will be deployed across the nation to their regional as well as district offices. Now, about 100 of these recruits are a part of the NAPCO staff that were deployed by government have been retained by the Meteo, and some new staff added to that, to the number of 250. Now, in her address, the Minister for Digitalization and Communication, Honorable Esla, also has promised some more equipment as well as improvement in the staff of the Ghana Meteo in order to enhance their work across nation. Now, the chairperson of the Awareness Month Celebration Committee, Felicity Ahafianyo, who is also the principal forecaster for the Ghana Meteo, noted that the agency is also putting plans in place to actually establish some clubs in the second cycle institutions across the nation. She noted that 10 of those have already been established in the northern part of Ghana, and the plan is to do same across the other part of the country, especially the southern part of the country. We can listen to some excerpt of these addresses that have been given on the day.
Prior to the end of NAPCO program in September 2021, after the 3-year training period, Jim made a special appeal to our minister to grant us a special dispensation to enable us retain the NAPCO personnel, because the agency did not have funds to pay these personnel on contract basis after the program. We requested financial clearance to recruit the personnel. Ladies and gentlemen, our minister responded positively to our plea and made a necessary intervention for us to receive the clearance from the Ministry of Finance in 2022 to recruit additional personnel, not only the retained NAPCO personnel. Please join me to give our minister a resounding applause for the historic feat. This brings to the finality the over a decade appeal for personnel to augment our staff strength. Following the recruitment, the current total staff strength of the agency now stand at 556. Of which 407 are males and 149 are females as of December 2022.
We have that some are in charge of administrative procedures, some are in charge of the daily observation, that's the hourly observation, and then we have some that will now be analyzing the data. So we have the assistant meteorologists, we are grooming them, so we'll send them to the regions so they become the regional meteorologists or forecasters. So they now zoom the forecast to the Ashanti region, to the Eastern region, Volta region, Greater Accra, Western Central, Bronx, Savannah, Upper East, Upper West, Northern, Northeast. You see, so they also zone in there so that the forecasts become more accurate. Our validation gave us 89. We want to get to 100. And how can we reach that? By so doing, all this staff will also add up, because they will be there, they'll be observing, they'll be analyzing, and then bringing their input down to the central analysis office, and then we all put them together and be given the update.
Indeed, as a member of the African Ministerial Conference on Meteorology, AMCOMET, I'm committed to promoting political and national cooperation to streamline policy making both at the national level and the Pan-African level too, to strengthen climate action. In 2019, we led efforts to amend the GMET Act by Act 1002 of 2019 to broaden the composition of GMET's governing board and set out sustainable sources of funding for the operations of the agency. We have implementation challenges, but we're working hard to resolve them. And so I have no doubt, but hopefully by the end of this year, you will receive adequate resources, financial resources, to deal with your current and emerging challenges. The Ministry of Communications and Digitalization also facilitated payments for operational vehicles procured by the agency, calibration equipment, and the message switching system. I really hope that you would also revamp your broadcasting system as well from your head office. Several other automatic weather stations have been installed with funds from government's e-Transform project to expand your network of stations across the country since 2018. We're all witnesses to the improved accuracy of forecasts and efficiency in GMET's service delivery. GMET is also a beneficiary institution to receive support under the World Bank funded Ghana Digital Acceleration Project, which is currently awaiting parliamentary approval.
We'll be getting more from this one-month-whole public awareness program, but reporting for JoyNews from the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission here in Accra. My name is James Kwesi Aveji.
And health workers in Jantiakrom in the Wasta Menfi municipality are impressed with the drone drug delivery being powered by Zipline. The measures were introduced by government as part of moves to ensure the speedy delivery of essential drugs to cheap compounds across the country. It appears health workers are impressed with this intervention. My colleague Samuel Kojo-Brace has more in this report.
This is Jantiakrom, a farming community, 3 hours drive from Asankragua, the municipal capital of the Amenfi West municipality of the Western region. This remote village is home to a tight-knit community of people who farm for a living. Their community is unfortunately connected by a terrible road network. The community has a chips compound, which serves as the main source of health care for the people here and the many others surrounding this community. However, the chips compound is plagued by several challenges. Ben Mieza is in charge of the Jantiakrom chips compound.
Very challenging, but we are managing. Yes, very challenging. There is no light, and the staff do not have quarters for accommodation, so we are just managing, but it's challenging. Where we stay, we do not have permanent accommodation, so we use some of the facility as staff accommodation, and during that we can't have space for both male and female when we are to detain people. For instance, somebody coming to labor and you need a space, a male too is occupying that same ward. It's either you decide the male to go home or to refer and attend to the delivery, or you let the delivery go ahead. It might be that the person might deliver on the way, and it's very bad. So we are just seeking that if it will be possible to get anybody to come and help us to have accommodation for staff, it will be very good for us.
Lack of electricity affects them badly because they are unable to store vaccines and other critical medicines.
We are supposed to vaccinate children every month. We have to move to the nearest community, that's or Dankotons for vaccine. Come and use them. After that, we have to send it back, which also affects us. If in transport, there can be anything. If there is vaccine here, we use it and keep it. But because we don't have a vaccine fridge and light, you have to go and put the vaccine in the light. You can get accident on the way, and that is a fact. If we're having our own light, we're getting a fridge and we're putting our vaccines here. Even in some of the things that we use, especially oxytocin, they are supposed to be in a cold pack. We don't have light here, so there's no fridge for you to keep the oxy, and it's also a problem. So if you have light, so many things can be done, and health delivery will be very smooth for all of us.
The chips compound, due to the distant nature of the community, had been battling with the difficulty in transporting their medical supplies, such as vaccines, to the facility. But today, with the drone services provided by Zipline, medical supplies including vaccines are supplied directly to the chips compound, bypassing the poor road infrastructure that otherwise made it difficult to transport medical supplies.
As for that one, by God's grace, we have been enlisted on it. So our vaccines that we talk about, is the drone that brings to us some drugs. If we get shortage of drugs, we request and they bring it. So as for that one, incidentally and by God's grace and our municipal director, the health director and other people, by their help, we've been able to get that thing. So that for that we thank them for that, but we are just seeking that they help us with the light, because as for that one, it is affecting us.
This chips compound is faced with a lot of challenges, from inadequate rooms to cater for patients to not well structured maternity delivery bed. But there's a spark of hope here. It's because the drone services by Zipline has been serving this community adequately. The in charge is excited by this. Ben Mieza took me through how the drones deliver product to them.
So just in front of the facility, there is a space there. So they came for a survey, and they saw that there are no trees there. The place is very plain. So when we request about in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, the drone will just come, and when it gets here, it gets down a little, open up, and the thing falls. We pick it, no damages. And as for that, we are grateful to whoever who brought it. Yes, it brings from vaccines to medication to family planning commodities. Anything that we need that they can provide, they bring it. Yes.
According to him, the drone services have helped them solve their essential needs.
Sometimes you put them in your vaccine carrier on the motorbike. As you are coming, some of the vaccine will get broken. Sometimes the paper on it that contains the batch number, they get deleted. And by the time you get here, you are frustrated. But for this, and sometimes you have to spend time. Go, by the time you come, the people have come to queue up, and it's very bad for, because if somebody comes, the person keeps long, the person will not come back again. For the person. But for the drones, you just type it, papa, jump to our chips, we need this. Within the next 30 minutes, the drone will be here. It forces you pick everything, no breakages, everything is there, and it is very convenient. So as for that one day, we cannot compromise on that.
A recent study by ID Insight, an advisory, data analytics and research organization with funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, reviewed drone services decreased the number of days that facilities were without critical medical supplies by 21%. It shortened vaccine stock out by 60% and decreased people being turned down for vaccinations due to issues with inventory by 42%. Zipline's service also increased the types of medicines and supplies that were stocked at health facilities by 10%. So how many times do drones deliver services to Jantwa-Chrome?
As many as you can, as many as you request, they come. As many, even a day. Sometimes you'll be doing CWC weighing, and you are short of some vaccines. You call them within 30 minutes. You have it. You have, maybe you want to give a certain medication, but you have depleted your stock. Maybe medical staff have not brought it. You just send message to them, and within 30-40 minutes, the drone will be here, and you're okay.
To Ben Mieza, with the drone services, the future of healthcare delivery in rural Ghana looks promising.
We have a bright future with this drone system, and it has removed a lot of time wasting, a lot of breakages, and it's exciting. It's exciting because you just sit, just type to them, and sometimes they are customer care too. When you think that they are delaying, when you call them, immediately you call, they pick it and they inform you that this, and they are on point. When they tell you it will land on 10:30, you have your vaccine. So we have a brighter future with this drone system in the health sector.
For Mieza, whoever brought the idea must be praised.
Anybody who brought it, the person who thought of it, has done very good thing to us. Yes.
From the Ghana Health Service, led by the Director General, Dr. Insia Sari, and the Chief Director of the Ministry of Health, Sir J. Mensah, and various committees that have worked hard. The Parliamentary Subcommittee on Health, all have worked so hard and remain focused and dedicated in ensuring that the use of this important technology is now part of the health delivery architecture of our country.
Jantwa-Chrome may be a remote farming community, but thanks to the dedication of the CHIPS compound staff and the innovative solution of Zipline and the government, the people of this community are able to live healthier and more connected lives. From Jantua Chrome, for Joy News, I am Samuel Kojo Brace.
Insightful innovation there. But we now talk about health, because as part of its measures to fight malaria across the country, a leading pharmaceutical company, Bleach GVS Pharma, has donated essential drugs worth some 300,000 Ghana cedis as part of measures to save lives. There's more in this report.
Bleach GVS is a global pharmaceutical company dedicated to the provision of quality and affordable pharmaceutical products to help cater for the needs of many.
I'm pharmacist Dr. Salifu Al-Hassan Tia, and I'm standing on behalf of the Managing Board of Tamale Teaching Hospital, the board and staff of the hospital.
On behalf of the Upper West Regional Hospital, and by extension, Upper West Region, we want to thank Bleach GVS Pharma for this kind gesture.
Annually, we embark on a campaign to fight malaria across our country and the continent at large. And this year, we are at Ho Trafalgar Teaching Hospital.
On behalf of the president of PSGH, the SEC, and the governing board, we want to say a big thank you that you have considered this initiative to cover a lot of hospitals in the region and even to the northern part of the country. And as a society, we'll continue to partner with you and ensure that your activities within this country is smooth.
All right, my name is Wisdom Delalia Jaku, pharmacist, Ho Teaching Hospital. I want to say on behalf of the board, the management and staff of Ho Teaching Hospital, we are privileged to be part of this donation from Bleach GVS as part of their ART campaign to ensure availability of anti-malarials in our hospitals.
I want to express our sincere gratitude to Bleach GVS for this opportunity to partner them to do donations to the various institutions. And we are also grateful that you are living by our motto, because the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana, the motto is Amicus Humanis Generis, which is friends of the human race. And if you have a company like Bleach GVS coming on board to do donation to humanity, then it means that you are actually living by our motto.
I pray that the good Lord will continue to bless the company so that they can be able to reach out to so many other hospitals in subsequent years. I would like to also assure Bleach GVS that their products, which are already available in all community pharmacies and all hospitals in Volta and Oti, we will continue to patronize those products so that at the end of it all, the well-being of the patient will be our hallmark.
And Ghana's Minister of Education, Dr. Yao Seijuduchum, has revealed that 62% of pupils in primary schools across the country cannot read. Based on this, the minister has welcomed the initiative to make Accra the World Book Capital. There's more in this report.
The city of Accra has been selected ahead of other cities by UNESCO as the 2023 World Book Capital. Accra thus becomes the fourth city in Africa to receive this title since 2001, making the city part of the prestigious World Book Capital Cities Network. Minister of Education, Honorable Yao Osei-Edichum, stated that reading should be part of the upbringing of children to ensure lifelong learning.
Books transforms minds, and minds transforms society. We can't talk about the transformation of our nation without bringing to bear the importance of reading and getting children fun. I think that is what we need to do more of. Children should not see reading as something that is required by school. If they see it as something required by school, when they graduate, they don't read any longer. And that is not how you create lifelong learners. Lifelong learners should be individuals who are excited about reading. And they'll pick up a book to read because it gives them excitement. And that is what I believe should be one of the legacies of Accra World Book Capital. That we have young men and women and adults who take interest in reading.
He said the initiative will help the 62% of primary school children in Ghana who cannot read to understand.
Now, oh dear country Ghana, 2015, primary 2, only 2% could read. 2015, primary 2, 2% of our children could read for understanding in primary 2. Serious indictment against us. Various interventions that have been put in place have allowed us to now, from our last 2022 national assessment, which every student in primary 2 was assessed, now move to 38%. 38% from 2% is no accomplishment. But I'm not happy when we say that 62% of the students can still not read. Not acceptable. We have a primary 4 assessment that has been done. We are waiting to see the results. I believe that as we improve literacy, we improve learning outcomes across the board, and we're going to do everything to take advantage of the spotlight that is on Accra to begin to just not improve literacy among students, create a culture of lifelong learning, but beyond that, also give opportunity for people to write and publish, for us to buy and read.
UNESCO representative to Ghana, Abdulrahmani Diallo, said the Accra World Book Capital will help improve tourism in the country.
This is the opportunity to do that year that the city also will partner with other big cities where they have book fairs. We have the Ghana Book Fair during the Accra Book Fair in the month of August. So they will partner with Frankfurt Book Fair, other book fair in Latin America or in France. So it's an opportunity for the book for the economy. Another opportunity is on tourism because it will be the spot to visit. To come and discuss about books. A lot of partners, entities will organize intellectual conference. It can be books and gastronomy, books and heritage, books and history.
The theme for the event, Reading to Connect Minds for Social Transformation, is set to commence on 24th April 2023 at the Accra International Conference Center. Jacqueline Ansuma Yabue's report for Joy News.
And back here in the studio, that's all we have for you here on the Pulse. I'm Blessed Sogah. Don't forget to log on to myjoyonline.com for updates. But for now, we're crossing you over back to Washington, where there's an address by a group of 24 African nations stating their joint position on the economic crisis confronting the continent. George Welfare is there, and will definitely bring you more in our subsequent bulletins.